Dhanam Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandanam Vraja Janaranjana Jamunathira Vanachari Jamunathira Vanachari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Stotarasat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Vrindam Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai Shingadev Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ji Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna to all of you. A very good morning for all of you and for all of you that are watching online in different parts. We'll first do our invocation prayers so we get the blessings of the Srimad Bhagavatam so we can actually understand and enjoy this nectarian pastime of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, text number 33. Tad abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ dhanam prahīṇam ājahruḥ udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ tad abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ dhanam prahīṇam ājahruḥ udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ tad abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ dhanam prahīṇam ājahruḥ udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ tad abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ dhanam prahīṇam ājahruḥ udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ. Devotees like to recite. Tadabi. Okay. Any? Okay, you can do it. So there's a little bit of a dispute. Who is going to lead the verse? Anybody would like to read the verse, and so we will repeat? Abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ dhanam ājahruḥ udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ dhanam prahīṇam ājahrur udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ ājahruḥ udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ. Mataji's? Abhipretam ālakṣya bhrātaro cyuta-coditāḥ dhanam prahīṇam ājahruḥ udīcyāṁ diśi bhūriśaḥ. So, tad, his, abhipretam, wishes of the mind, ālakṣya, observing, bhrātaraḥ, his brothers, acyuta, the infallible, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, coditāḥ, being advised by, dhanam, riches, prahīṇam, to collect, ājahruḥ, brought about, udīcyāṁ, northern, diśi, direction, bhūriśaḥ, sufficient. So Prabhupada translates this verse like this. Understanding the hearty wishes of the king, his brothers, as advised by the infallible Lord Kṛṣṇa, collected sufficient riches from the north, led by King Marutta. Would you like to repeat with me? It's a nice verse. Understanding the heart wishes of the king, his brothers, as advised by the infallible Lord Kṛṣṇa, collected sufficient riches from the north, left by King Marutta. So there's a purport here by Srila Prabhupada. Mahārāja Marutta, one of the greatest emperor of the world. He reigned over the world long before the reign of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. He was the son of Mahārāja Avikṣit. Oh, sorry. It's not the time for that. Sorry. He was the son of Mahārāja Avikṣit and was a great devotee of the sun god, known as Yamaraj. His brother, Samvarta, was a rival priest of the great Bṛhaspati, the learned priest of the demigods. He conducted one sacrifice called Saṅkara-yajña, by which the Lord was so satisfied that he was pleased to hand over to him the charge of a mountain peak of gold. The peak of gold is somewhere in the Himālaya Mountains, and modern adventurers may try to find it there. He was so powerful, an emperor, that all the days and at the day's end of the sacrifice, the demigods from the other planets like Indra, Candra and Bṛhaspati used to visit his palace. And because he had a gold peak at his disposal, he had sufficient gold in his possession. The canopy of the sacrificial altar was completely made of gold. In his daily performance of the sacrificial ceremonies, some of the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka, the airy planets, were invited to expedite the cooking work of the ceremony, and the assembly of the demigods in the ceremony was led by Vishwadeva. By the constant pious work, he was able to drive out all kinds of diseases from the jurisdiction of his kingdom. A very needed kingdom in this time. All the inhabitants of higher planets like Devaloka and Prithiloka were pleased with him for his great sacrificial ceremonies. Every day he used to give in charity to the learned Brahmanas such things as beddings, seats, conveyances, and sufficient quantities of gold. Because of munificent charities and performance of innumerable sacrifices, the king of heaven, Indradeva, was fully satisfied with him and always wished for his welfare. Due to his pious activities, he remained a young man throughout his life and reigned over for 1,000 years. Surrounded by satisfied subjects, minister, legitimate wife, sons and brothers. Even Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa praised his spirit of pious activities. He handed over his only daughter to Mahārāja Angira, and by his good blessings he was elevated to the kingdom of heaven. First of all, he wanted to offer the priesthood of his sacrifice to the learned Bṛhaspati, but the demigod refused to accept the post because of the king's being a human being, a man of this earth. He was very sorry for this, but on the advice of Narada Muni, he appointed Samvarta to the post, and he was successful in his mission. The success of a particular type of sacrifice completely depends on the priest in charge. In this age, all kinds of sacrifices are forbidden because there is no learned priest amongst the so-called Brahmanas, who go by the false notion of becoming sons of Brahmanas without Brahminical qualifications. In this age of Kali, therefore, only one kind of sacrifice is recommended. And you may guess, Saṅkara-yajña, as inaugurated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi. Alma Jnana Timirandasya Jnanam Janam Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Śrī Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasaji Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. First of all, thank you so much for the privilege of being here with all of you. It's a pleasure to be back in Sri Mayapur. I've been a resident for a few years now, and it's so glorious to see the young children, when I came here, now become fully grown adults in charge of education, in charge of deity worship, in charge of so many services in the Holy Dham. And that's very enlivening because we can see a future. So I was just coming back for 1 year, and I can see how much Mayapur is developing, and that's very enlivening. So myself, I'm a simple, humble student of Bhakti Yoga, which will try to share my humble realizations with all of you today. It's very kind of the Mayapur organizer of the Srimad Bhagavatam class to invite me. I think he believes there's something I can say. I hope it's beneficial, and I hope by the end of the class we'll take something from this beautiful literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are here in a very interesting part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's been announced the birth of the personality who will actually hear this message. And this process is the process which is going to protect us in the absence of Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa. Actually, this was a big question. Krishna, when you leave the planet, who will be protecting us? And he says, Srimad Bhagavatam will be there. So by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, we assure that Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa will be personally protecting us on a daily basis. And how does he do that? We investigate that from this purport. There's very interesting hints in this verse, which gives us a roadmap how to strengthen our connection with Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa. The verse is talking about this specific point where the brothers of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira is being asked to go to the north, to a place where there's a peak of gold. Now you can imagine, if anybody in this room knew that there's a peak of gold somewhere, there'll be a gold rush. Everybody will be running there because you know with gold you can accomplish everything you like to do, especially if it's something spiritual. Like for example, if we discover where this place is, we could instantly build the TOVP without any problems. And not only could we leaf plate the domes, we could actually made of solid gold, which would be very interesting. So everybody would be very interested to find this place. But Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa knows what it is because he is ever-knowing. He knows everything all the time. And the first word of this verse is understanding. So I want you to keep in mind this word, understanding. It's very key in understanding how relationships strengthen, and Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa is going to be a major player in that. So from the purport we heard this Mahārāja Marutta was the greatest emperor. He ruled for 1,000 years, and he was ever young, and he was governing in such a way that there was no diseases in his kingdom, and the demigods would visit him regularly, and he's giving charities for all these Brahmins. He's protecting the Brahmins. So we assume he's protecting the cows, because Prabhupada says that real civilization starts when we protect the Brahmins and the cows. So he must have had this understanding very deeply, so that he could transcend the dualities of the material world, the miseries of the triguna. He could do that. And he had a brother, a priest, which was doing all these sacrifices for him. And the key here is Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa was so pleased by his sacrifice. So that's another key point. Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa was so pleased by his sacrifice. Yeah, then Prabhupada ends the purport by saying, in this age, there are many Brahmins who actually forgot what to be a Brahmin means. And Prabhupada brought the message, how to revive the Brahminical culture. And you can see his first intention was to make Brahmins. Prabhupada is clearly saying, I need to create first-class Brahmins. And he has done that in the most miraculous ways. He has bring devotees who were in so many different avenues of life, and they became such sadhus. You can just observe their daily behavior and you can understand this person is a very pure personality. I really wish to be associating with this personality. And that's because Prabhupada created a system which purified us. He didn't create, he just revealed a system which is ever existing of purification, so that we can all engage in this purification work. So therefore he's saying, in this age, like we have 4 seasons of the year, one season, the rainy season. So the rainy season, there are only some things you can do. So Kali Yuga has certain characteristics, and one of them is Saṅkirtan-yajña. So we should take advantage and do Saṅkirtan-yajña, definitely. So in this verse, going back to what I was trying to point out in the beginning about understanding relationships, right? You have read this verse some time ago, but Bhishma Deva is lying on his bed of arrows in a very painful situation. And in that, there's a verse, the first verse. It's saying that being so afraid of having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira went to the scene of the massacre. So here you have this emperor of the whole world, who didn't want to be the cause of violence, the cause of suffering. But because there was some duty to perform, he went ahead and did, and he fought the battle, after trying to avoid in all possible ways. But none was possible. So he's looking at the massacre, and he's feeling very guilty that all these men are lying there. But he's not only thinking about the men, he's thinking about the wives and the communities which now have lost all those people. We can imagine what it means for a family who depends on some person for a livelihood, and that person is killed. The whole family goes through a very troublesome situation. So he could understand there's a lot of suffering beyond the one just seen right there in front of us, that huge rivers of blood flowing and corpses flowing. He's looking at that and he's feeling guilty for that. And Bhishma Deva will speak the whole meaning of Dharma in such a beautiful way, so that he's pacified. And now here we come back to this point, because Krishna, he notices that Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira is actually very thoughtful. He's meditating, he's thinking about something. So he immediately understands that, and he sends the brothers of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, the Pandavas, to get this huge amount of gold, which he knows where it is. Why does he do that? Because the treasury is completely exhausted after the war. You can imagine so many millions of people died, how much wealth you had to spend on that warfare. So it's said that Maharaj had enough to run the day-to-day activities, but he didn't have enough to invest. And Krishna, understanding that, he says, I know where there is the solution, just go there and solve the case. Now, the previous verse leading to this verse is telling us the qualities of this great personality. Right in verse number 4, the glories of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira is being pointed out. But before I do say that, I'd like to bring some lenses for this class. I'd like to lend some lenses of a person called Dan Heath. He's a psychologist running a book about help. And he brought a little bit of a window which I thought would help us to look at this magnificent moment. And the name of his book is The Power of Moments. And he says that memorable moments are created by peaks. There's a peak of emotion which makes you remember a certain moment. And he says that these moments are either one of the 4. For example, there's an elevation. You feel very joyful. Who doesn't remember your first day in Kirtan? When you joined the Kirtan, a kind of emotion hit you, that you're jumping, some joyful emotion was running through you freely, and it made you come here. And today you're serving so many years, some for 50 years, some for 40 years, some for 20 years, some for all their lives. And that was sparked by a moment. There was a moment of elevation in your lives where you thought, this makes sense. It's so exciting to be part of this. And then it says there's another type of elevation, of moments, a peak moment, which comes from insight. Who doesn't remember reading a book of Srila Prabhupada and all of a sudden you say, wow, I never thought about this. This makes so much sense, isn't it? Or an insight who you are. What are you doing? What is the purpose of our lives here? What is my purpose in this mission? What am I doing here in this class? So there's a moment of insight, and we kind of understand who we are and what we can do, and that brings us a moment of emotion, a peak moment. Then he says there's another type of moment, which is when you have some pride, but not the bad pride where you feel arrogant. The good pride, like Prabhupada said, I'm very proud to be a disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And he would often show his head very raised, as you can see in many pictures, full of good pride. I'm happy to be part of this. This is saving humanity. So it's nice to be part of this family. It's nice to be part of this movement. It's nice to be a disciple of this personality. And then he says there's a fourth kind of moment which creates a peak moment. And that's when we feel a deep connection. Just like when one has a relationship and you feel a certain type of responsiveness in that relationship, that gives us a sense of emotion. And that's the point I would like to bring. This psychologist says this is made of 3 steps. One is you understand the person in front of you. The next, you validate the emotions and the person who is in front of you. And third, you care for the person in front of you. So he says these 3 elements makes connection, makes someone really feel connected to us. Who can imagine a day when someone came up with a present and said, this is for you because you're important for me? Or a day when, I had here a little example of connection. The day you said to your Guru Maharaj, my dear Guru Maharaj, I'd like to be your disciple. And he said, yes, I can accept you as my disciple. There was some deep, intimate connection happening there that you felt, most probably, I assume because I imagine many people felt that, a deep sense of connection. And that connection was first by the acceptance. The Guru understood your request. And then he validated, okay, I can initiate you. And then he cared to the present day. And all of us have experienced how a Guru Maharaj or God brothers phone us, care for us, and that's how the Vaishnava Sangha is maintained, by that care ecosystem. Everybody's taking care of each other. So under these lenses, which I'm borrowing to all of you, I'm lending it from Dan, and I'm offering to all of you. The first word on this verse is understanding the hearty wishes of the king. The hearty wishes, something was from deep inside. He wanted to do this glorious Ashwamedha Yajna, which means you cannot have opposition in any part of the planet. It must be unanimous that you are the emperor of this place. Everybody submits. How difficult that is to have that unity. But because the 4 brothers were working so cooperatively, there was no competition between them. Immediately they went to catch this, because they knew Krishna understood and now validated the hearty wish of the king. The king is now feeling reciprocated and cared for. And that is going to give him a lot of enthusiasm to do the yajna and actually to do something for the benefit of all humanity. So that's a principle. I'm not sure if you could at this point completely grasp, but for me it made so much sense to look at these personalities with these lenses. Let's analyze another character which is very dear to this family. His wife Draupadi. She was completely abused by so many powerful people who were to be the guides of humanity. Bhishma Deva and Drona. They didn't abuse her, but they allowed that men like Duryodhana abuse her. You can imagine if a lady was dragged in this room and tried to be disrobed for her disgrace, any one of us would immediately reject that, wouldn't you? But there was silence in the palace. And this lady felt helpless. She had the most powerful warriors at her disposal right in front of her, but she could not access their help at that specific moment due to political constraints and to the course of events. So what did she do? She let go of her clothes and she said, Lord Kṛṣṇa, I am completely surrendered to you. As you please do. And what did he do? He understood her immediately and said, this is my devotee. How can she be left to be disgraced when she's so pious, she's so chaste? I can never let that happen. And how did he validate that prayer? He manifested hundreds of meters of sari that this powerful warrior was trying to pull and pull and pull and pull until he got tired and got really ashamed of himself. He, a warrior, could even pull a sari. And then he cared for her by showing her virtue. And again, Draupadi is in that situation. When she was in the kingdom Virat, she was a humble servant of the queen, and she was very chaste. But the queen said, you are very beautiful. A man, just by looking at you, he will definitely be in love. And it will be a disaster. Even my husband, he said, don't worry, I'll keep myself very chaste. But nevertheless, the brother of the queen, he was a warrior, and he tried to grab her by force. And again, she was in a situation of problems. Someone was trying to chastise her, to enjoy her without her consent. And what did she do? She ran to her husband Bhimadev. I'm sorry. Sorry, the names are similar, but Bhima, the big Bhima. He was a cook, and he was there in his room. And what does she say? She reveals her mind, and she's saying, how can this happen? You're all powerful, and I'm suffering this. Look at my hands, they're full of calluses from the service I'm doing. And he's crying and says, how can this happen to you? And he's beating himself and saying, he's beating his head and say, how can... So he is understanding her. And then she says, this prince or this kshatriya is so powerful, he'll end up getting what he wants, and then I'll kill myself. And what does he say? Don't worry, I'll kill him today. So he validates her request. And he cares for her by saying, bring him to this dance hall, and I'll be there waiting for him. And this Kichika meets his end. And the relationship of Draupadi and Bhima becomes so much stronger because of connection. He understood, he validated, and he cared. So I thought this was incredible for us because Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira is a pure devotee, and that's the reason he's a king. And this Bhagavatam verse is proving that point, that a king should first be a devotee of the Lord. Why? Because he will understand the needs of the people. Then he will validate the needs of the people. And then he will care for the needs of the people. Therefore, when you feel cared for, you feel inspired to surrender, to give yourself without any problems. That is why in Prabhupada's time, every single member was so happy to surrender because they felt fully protected. Fully protected. There was no problem on the planet Earth which Srila Prabhupada could not sort for his disciples. Be it legal, marital, family, political, any problem. A fall down, Prabhupada could reconcile that. A disciple fell down, the whole society is looking bad on him. He said, no, you come back. You're my disciple. I accept you. A disciple stole money from his treasury. He said, I forgive you. Come back and be my treasurer again. That's Prabhupada. He could do that because he was in such a reciprocal relationship with his disciples that those kind of activities were possible. Now just think, many times we are disconnected from this type of connection. We feel we are in a spot where, do we really care about many people today? Make a self-inventory and you say, am I really being connective in my family environment, in my service environment, in my community? And then when we feel that, if we come to the conclusion that, no, I don't have many connections, that's a great starting point, because now you can say, I can start connecting again. And why can I do that? Because Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, He is completely ready at any moment to reciprocate and to understand, to validate, and to care for all of us. And He's doing that through the Sankirtan movement. How many people out there are there sitting on a bar, drinking, enjoying themselves, and some great soul says, today I'm going to go out on Harinam. And because of that effort, that person who is not even thinking about Krishna, he kind of gets a taste of this happiness of the kirtan, and he's just dancing and imitating the kirtan, saying Hare Krishna, something, and all of a sudden he's connected to the Sankirtan movement. Someone cared about to go out on Harinam. And therefore this person, and actually I'm going to end with a little video which many of you might have seen. I found extraordinary. It was posted by His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu. It's called A Lighter. Have you seen it? Has anybody seen it here? No? It's a very simple video. He's going on book distribution as always. That's almost his sarup. He's always giving a book. So he's followed by many disciples, and they're very happy going around and asking. So he comes to this person. He's kind of leaning against a pillar, observing, and he's smoking a cigarette. And Vaisheshika Prabhu comes and he offers a book for him. Hey, this is for you. And all of a sudden the man sees a book in his hand. He doesn't know what to do. And he says, the book is yours, but I need a small reciprocation. Can you give some donation? And the man says, I have no money on me. I only have my cigarettes. And then he makes a joke. Is it Marlboro? And the man says, no, it's another brand. He says, never mind, I'll take it anyway. Give me a cigarette. So he trades the book for a cigarette. And the man says, now the man starts to think about him and says, maybe he needs a lighter to light his cigarette. And says, you need a lighter? And he says, yeah, I'll need a lighter. Give me the lighter. He says, oh, actually, I'll trade. I'll give you back your cigarette. I'll keep the lighter. And then the man says, oh, wait a minute. I need my lighter. He's attached to the lighter. He can't give the lighter back, He says, I need this. Well, a lighter must cost 30 cents of a US dollar, a few rupees, but he's attached to his lighter. He says, no, I can't give that. And then Vaisheshika Prabhu looks at him in the eyes and says, with this lighter, I'm going to do a special yagya for you, and you get spiritual benefit. So I think you should give it to me. What do you think? And he's thinking, and he finally says, all right, you can have this lighter. And then after that, immediately, he opens the book, and he's interested. Why? He was understood. He was validated. And he's being cared for. Someone is going to make a yagya for him for the price of a lighter. So the next image, we see Vaisheshika Prabhu lighting a Damodar lamp and with the lighter. And the lighter doesn't start. He's trying to light it a few times. He says, oh, I hope this works. And then finally, the lighter comes to light, and he does Damodar Astakam for that person. So that's a caring picture. Someone who really cares on a spiritual level for that person. That's our sign. The class is going to end very soon. So my point for today was this great king, which might seem so out of our sight, so pure that the demigods are visiting him. We might say, yes, that's him in that embellished kingdom which I have no access. He's lending to us a message that wherever we are, we have the possibility of connection with Sri Krishna. And this is what he's trying to convey when he's trying to do a yajna for the benefit of all of us. So I'll end here. We have about 2 minutes, so if there's a quick comment, question or correction, it's well taken. Hare Krishna. I don't know if we have a mic here or even if it... Oh, we do. Anybody has a question or a comment or a correction? You're welcome. We have two, Prabhu. We have one there and one here. That might be just what we have time for.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Very nice class, Prabhuji, very inspiring about caring. Prabhuji, we see some people are introvert kind of person and they find it difficult to make connection. So they have very less friends and they are very poor in relationships also sometimes. So if we have to manifest this kind of caring nature, it is difficult. So what is your suggestion about?
So your question, if someone is an introvert, what do you do about this? Everybody has a loving language, has a love language. It might be offering you a little something, a prasadam, something they liked. So different people experience different levels. So an introvert person, if he is devoid of relationship, my advice is believe that Krishna will reciprocate. And if he steps out of that comfort zone where I am comfortable in my world, I don't need to go out of it, try stepping out a little bit. And you see this amazing world out there of devotees, of the Lord trying to reciprocate. Doesn't have to be like in a TV show, but in your own place. And Krishna will surely reciprocate. So if the person is lacking in relationships, it's because maybe the person hasn't fully recognized that I need to care for somebody. Have I today thought of somebody? Have I done something selfless for somebody? Have I done all my job for the pleasure of Krishna? Have I really done that? Have I read the Bhagavatam with the purpose of reciprocating with the Bhagavatam, really understanding and applying my life? Have I done that? So then relationship starts to evolve. Okay? We have one more before we do finish. I was advised to firmly end at 9:45. So.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you shared very good examples of insight from inside. So these insights are very good and very helpful for keeping a reminder that what good fortune we got from this moment. But how to maintain those insights?
Yes, excellent question. Thank you for your question. Your question could be a whole seminar, and actually the whole continuation of this movement. But I'll try to be very simple. When we all came, all attention was given to us, and gradually attention was diminished until nobody even remembered us, that we existed in this movement. So that's something we need to think as a movement. We are very good at attracting people. We must become very good at keeping people by caring. So those insights which you mentioned, they happen when I am feeling cared for, protected, member of a community. So that gives me a peak moment which I always remember. And by being elevated with full of emotions, I will extend that to others. So the exercise of keeping a nurturing society based on friendship, genuine spiritual friendship, that needs to be present. Otherwise we'll lose insight, we'll lose inspiration, and we'll just become cold as a movement. And that is something every movement faces. But it's our challenge, and I see many devotees being successful at winning this challenge with warm, caring relationships. Okay? So I'll end here. So I might get in trouble, but
I think it's all right.
Okay, 10 to 9, all right.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada, association can be 2 or 200. Yamuna, Srila Prabhupada, although we are very happy where we are prepared to go whenever you would like to send us in order to have your blessings. Srila Prabhupada,
You Westerners are always so restless. Why can't you stay where you are? Yamuna. But we have been told that because we don't have the association of devotees, we cannot make any advancement. Srila Prabhupada, association can be 2 or 200, but you must be compatible. If you are 2 and you are compatible, you can go back to Godhead. But if you are 200 and not compatible, Prabhupada's eyes opens widely, then no one will make any advancement, except from Yamuna Devi, a life of unalloyed devotion.
Perfect. Thank you for the quote. Brilliant. Yes. Compatibility means what we're just talking about the whole class. Okay, on that sweet note, we'll end here. Thank you very much for your patience, for your hearing. I hope I was of some benefit in this process. Hare Krishna, Jai Śrīla Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.